Here are 5 key tips that you can use to make sure your plants stay alive this winter. Hello guys, and welcome back to the Cozy Jungle. So in this video I wanted to go through the 5 key things to look out for to make sure that your plants stay alive and thrive throughout the winter season. Now we're coming up towards the winter, it's slowly getting darker as the days go on, and we're not going to see the temperatures that we're looking for, the lighting that we're looking for, even the humidity and the general temperature. So we need to make sure that what we do can help your plants thrive throughout that whole winter season to make sure that they don't die and stay in a healthy state. So some of the key things to look out for. So the first thing that we need to look out for is water. Now because we're heading in towards the winter, we're not going to get as much sunlight, so the likelihood of the water drying within the soil is going to be very slim. So the last thing we want to be doing is watering it frequently. We need to water our plants less frequently. That way we can allow it to dry out just a little bit more to make sure that we're not going to cause any damp and potentially cause root rot within that position. So make sure that when it comes to watering your houseplants as the winter goes on, is do it less frequently and monitor what's happening. It's probably best to get one of those moisture meters like I've got here, where you can test to see whether or not the water is still damp or whether it needs to have some water. So first thing is have less water within your plants. Now the second one, which is a little bit more obvious, is we need to give it some light. Because of the fact that the clocks are going to change and it's going to get darker a lot earlier and a lot later, we need to make sure that all of our plants are getting enough sunlight, whether that's direct or indirect sunlight. Now some of the simplest things you can do, which is what I've got behind me, which is to get some LED lights or some kind of grow lights that are going to make sure that you have sustainable light throughout the day and for a little bit longer when it comes to the evenings. Now you can get them in different patterns of colours to make sure that you get it to grow, whether to be sustainable or if it's just replicating a certain lighting for their tropical points. So it's making sure that we get enough light consistently throughout the day into some of the later parts of the evening. If we don't get enough light, we're going to notice that they're going to flop and drop and then eventually die, and that's the last thing we want to be doing when it comes to that winter point. So the third step is keeping the humidity up. Now because we're getting in towards the winter, we're obviously going to be heating our indoors. We're going to be heating the house, and because of that we're going to get a lot of dry air. And because of the dry air, we're going to eventually affect some of the plants that we have within the environment. Now some plants can be absolutely fine in dry heat, but the vast majority of us that fully invest our time into houseplants, we're going to need to make sure that there's humidity, because a lot of our plants need that humidity, especially some of the plants that are from a tropical based environment which need humidity to survive and thrive. So if you're planning on putting the heating up during the winter, we need to make sure that we've got some humidity. Now you can get some humidifiers, which I've got behind me. You can get some bigger scale ones, or even just spraying frequently across the leaves will be enough for it to thrive in the way that we want them to. Now the fourth one is to stop feeding them. We don't need to be fertilizing our plants during the winter season, because in reality that's not going to happen in the winter point. We're not going to get the natural nutrients that we would do in the winter seasons. So stop feeding them. They're not likely to grow over that period of the winter time because it's an extreme scenario. Our plants thrive during that April to September seasons. We don't need to be going anywhere beyond that point. The likelihood is they're just going to stay as they are and just make sure that they are healthy throughout that winter period. The moment it gets to that point of April, we're going to start to notice some new growth, and exponential growth, which is going to be amazing for our plants for the future. And the final thing is keeping them away from drafts and heaters. The last thing we want is to put them in an extreme environment where the temperatures rise and fall to an extreme amount, because our plants are not going to be able to hack that. They're not going to be able to cope with the sudden changes. And because of that, it gets into shock and eventually it will die. So you've got to make sure that wherever you're placing your plants are not going to experience extreme situations of heat and cold. So we need to make sure that you place them in a good, healthy environment. If you're planning on putting some next to the window, you've got to make sure that they're able to cope with lower temperatures. Not to an extreme, but lower temperatures. If you're planning on putting plants next to radiators or heaters, you've got to make sure the humidity is high, or you're picking plants that can survive that area. Those are simple things like succulents that will be able to survive that period. So those are the 5 key things that we're looking out for. If we keep hold of those 5 key tips, you're going to be able to make sure that your plants stay nice and healthy throughout the whole winter season. They're less likely to die, cause root rot and dry out. So use those tips as a way of keeping your plants nice and healthy in preparation for the winter, so that when it comes to April and we get to spring, they're going to start to thrive all over again. So thank you very much for watching the video. Please like, share and subscribe, and I hope you enjoyed the video, and please let everyone know.